Welcome, friends. Welcome to this month's Zoom meeting. And I was really led to start doing kind of a trauma sequence, because sometimes we get to the end of summer, or sorry, the end of the school year or the start of summer, and it's like, wow, we're carrying a lot of burdens. In fact, I even have like a little bit of, I wouldn't say a headache, but just a heaviness kind of at the base of my neck. And sometimes, you know, we do this. So just trying to let out that tension, let out the trauma, let it, all that stress, you know, kind of decompress. So welcome, friends. I'm Jody King Coldgrove, and wanted to share with you, how do we get rid of trauma? But I do also a lot of other things, so I wanted to kind of share what I do. So I specialize in helping women in their 40s and 50s pinpoint the root cause of their anxiety, their depression, and their sleep issues, so they can finally get started feeling like themselves again. So I have a unique 7-step process that is rooted in Christian principles that is designed to help you regain your energy, your vitality, and a clear mind, so that you're feeling like something. So if you've been feeling like something's been holding you back, let me help you get your life back on track. So sometimes trauma is a big word, okay? And we have what we call a trauma sequence in the modality that I do, but it can be for stress, it can be for frustration, it can be for anger. You know, it's like whatever is angsting you, that's what it can be used for. So I want to give you kind of some examples. So one would be in the area that I live, in Louisiana, we get tornado warnings. And a lot of times they can be scary and frustrating. And you know that we're in an area that doesn't usually get them. But just the idea that there's something out there that, you know, is coming can be really stressful. And a lot of times if it happens enough, it starts getting to that anxiety or that frustrating part. And so that can be hard. And so that's what I mean by some trauma or some anxiety, okay? Another thing that you could be is like when you break your leg. Okay, I broke my leg skiing, still love to ski to this day, but I broke my leg skiing. And so that is a trauma. I mean, I was sitting on, you know, on the ski run, and I, you know, what do you call it? Shock sets in, so you don't feel the pain. But I knew I had done something wrong, and I had to wait for people to show up. And so it's like, okay, I'm laying here, what else can I do? And I went, I can do the trauma sequence. So I started running the trauma sequence, and I teach today. And that helped calm me down so that I wasn't in overstress and anxious. So that is a true trauma. Or we can have other things where, you know, we have been, you know, abused mentally or physically in our childhood. And that sometimes carries forward into different beliefs or way that we behave in our everyday life now. It could be the loss of a job that's a trauma. So there's lots of ways that it takes shape. I remember one time at Christmas time, it was Christmas Eve, and an employee of my dad called and was very disgruntled at Christmas. And so it disrupted our whole evening of Christmas Eve. And so I remember going to bed, and it bothered me so much that it was the first time and only time in my life I sleepwalked, because I ended up back in the same position I had when he called. And that was a stressor. So I was trying to like clear whatever I was dealing with. So don't think of trauma as such a big word that it can't encompass everything. It can encompass stress, it can encompass anxiety. It's really what you're dealing with and on an everyday basis that is causing you issue. So welcome. We're just getting started. So Kat, thanks for joining in. So I wanted to read for you kind of what anxiety is, an example of what anxiety does in your body, okay? So stress, anxiety, and trauma creates a physical and a non-physical response. Trauma can overwhelm the nervous system and its capacity to process the experience. Pieces of that experience are left unprocessed, frozen behind in the body and in the brain. And anytime the flow of energy goes through those areas, the person will experience a trauma symptom. Okay, so an example is there was a time when my husband was going to get a job and they were all set to hire him, and then at the last minute they changed their mind, and so we drove through that same town later in life, and he had a lot of anxiety and anger and frustration that showed up, and I'm like, what changed? And I realized, oh, we're in that location. So an example of this also for me was that I was in a kind of like a car wreck. It wasn't, nothing happened, but I was driving along, and all of a sudden my car hit ice, or it was like, what do you call that? Where you had ice. Can't think of it. Hail. There you go. Hail. And so it was just enough to make my car slid, and so I kind of slid out and landed in the ditch. But there was a semi near me, and I didn't know where he was, but I just had a conscious effort of, oh my gosh, I want to miss the, the semi. So everything was fine. I was able to, chill, calm down, pull out, and go back to driving, and everything was fine. But the next time I went down that same road, my heart rate got a little bit faster, my breathing got a little more shallow, and my arms kind of, shoulders kind of came up, and so I was in a protective mode. That's an example of going through that same situation and having that same experience and that same physical feeling and behavior. And so that's what happens when you are reliving that energy, or that energy goes through the same path that you had before. So our bodies tend to hold on to that pattern of that trauma. And when we take the time to deal with that trauma, we become more resilient human beings, because we're like, hey, I can handle this. I can do this. And we learn from it. We learn who we are and how we can help with handle life in the future again, if that situation comes up, or something like that. And so it's really important that we learn how to deal with our stresses and our traumas, so we can become better people. So I want you to think of a time when you had some stress or anxiety or emotional pain or trauma in your life. And so those can be things like, all dealing with 2020 and everything that happened with that. It could be the loss of a friend or a family member. It could be arriving on the scene of an accident. It could be a situation with your husband or your parents that you're having to deal with. It could be angry words that you had with your child or your teenager. Or it could be a situation at work with an angry customer, a boss, or a negative email or phone call that you got. So all of those can be trauma. So I just want you to raise your hand if you have a trauma that you're thinking about. And so I always kind of do the same thing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be doing this trauma today. Exercise. And so, what trauma do I want to deal with? And so I have a trauma that I'm wanting to deal with, and it deals with traveling. I have some traveling coming up in my life, and I want to deal with that situation. So I don't need to necessarily know what your trauma is, but if you could just kind of raise your hand, you can go back down at the bottom of the screen, and there's a reactions button on Zoom, and so you can click that, and it just says raise hand, and so that makes me know that you've got the trauma that you're wanting to work on. So Lori, if you could do that, that would really help me, so I know that we're on the same page. All right. So once you get that trauma in mind, I want you to get a clear picture of it, of the circumstances and the feeling that you have. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. Just, if you could raise your hand so that I know that you have a clear picture of what you're doing. And if you're not able to, find the right buttons to push, I just will hope that you have that you in mind. And so what you want to do is you want to rate it from a scale from 1 to 10. Okay. So for me, thinking about all the things that I have to do in order to get ready to travel to a place I haven't been in 20 years. There's a lot, and I have to not just orchestrate me, but I have to orchestrate my family to get us there. It seems daunting. And so, so I want to give it a level from 1 to 10. So I think for right now, I'm at like a 7. When we're going to take a train, and so the idea of having to orchestrate the train and get that all in the schedule and everything is like at a 7 to me. Okay, now it used to be at a 9, so I know I've worked on this already. So there's another aspect coming up. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen right now, and okay, so hopefully, yeah, looks like you're seeing. And I don't have it on full screen. There we go. Okay, so this is the trauma sequence that we use. Yeah, so this is a trauma sequence that we use, and so I want you to follow along with me as we're tapping. So we're thinking about the situation that we're wanting to deal with and to let go of, and that's causing us angst. Okay, so then we're going to tap on the eyebrow, the index finger, the little finger, the side of hand, the side, the eyebrow, under the eye, the middle finger, the side of hand, the index finger, outside of eye, underarm, and collarbone. And you can do it both sides or just one side. And a lot of these points come from EFT or tapping. And we've just adopted it to, because the founder of the modality that I do, and Gary Craig that did EFT, you know that, they learned this technique together. And so they've taken it in different ways. Gary Craig tends to do it more dealing with emotional things, and we tend to do both emotional and a lot of physical health issues. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do that again. Eyebrow, index finger, little finger, side of hand, eyebrow, under the eye, middle finger, side of hand, index finger, outside of eye, under the arm, and collarbone. Okay. Take a breath in between. You know, we like to repeat it kind of 3 times. So let's go again. Eyebrow, index finger, little finger, side of hand, start of the eyebrow, under the eye, middle finger, side of hand, index finger, outside of the eye, under the arm, and collarbone. Okay, so I just want you to kind of check in and say, okay, now we've kind of tapped that 3 times. Go back to the picture of this stressful situation, okay, and that anxiety and the trauma that you have. Now, how do you feel? I just had a big, overwhelming, just the idea of getting my family on the plane and having to like orchestrate that. And, you know, I'm wanting to give them this beautiful trip, and I feel responsible for their behavior, which is, or everything going right. I think that's where my angst is. Okay, so when that happens, so that emotion I just had sent me to a 9. So what I think is interesting is here is you can go along and say, okay, if I were just to think about that train trip, now I don't have any issue. But there's another aspect about the travel that really hit home. And that's the idea of getting them on the plane, hoping everything goes well, and then being responsible for their emotions about everything going right. Okay. So that took me to a 9. So that's the next thing I'm going to tap on, is I'm going to tap on that emotion. So a lot of times when you're doing this, different aspects of the problem will come up. So an example would be, let's say, breaking the leg. Okay, so you broke your leg or hurt an arm. You have the initial when it happened, but then you also have them taking you off the mountain, or taking you into the ambulance, or taking you into surgery. So those are different times when you've had a stressful moment or a fear that has come up. And so the intent is we're clearing those aspects of the whole trauma. Okay. So I'm thinking about that 9. Want you to be aware of where you're at from the number when you started to where you're at now. Okay, so let's go ahead and repeat that again. We have eyebrow, index finger, little finger, side of hand, eyebrow, under the eye, middle finger, side of hand, index finger, outside of eye, armpit, and collar. I'm going to do that again. Eyebrow, index finger, little finger, side of hand, eyebrow, under the eye, middle finger, side of hand, index finger, outside the eye, armpit, and collarbone. Okay. And again, just taking a nice deep breath and kind of checking in with yourself and seeing where you're at. For me, it kind of went down to a 5. And what's coming up is a very emotional part for me. And that's me realizing the fear of being responsible for their emotions. And that's not my job. But a lot of times, as moms, we take that all on, or the person in the family. And so it's the emotion that's coming up is that that's not my job and I need to let that go. And it's emotional to me because I want them to experience everything I love about travel. And I want it so bad and I'm trying to make it happen, but that's not my job. So in just saying that, it was a 5, I kind of raised to a 7. So there's definitely some emotion that's coming up there. So again, just want to run it through again. Okay, so eyebrow. And Lori, I hope that, you are also kind of following around and seeing what emotions are kind of coming up with you. I may have messed it up. Let's try again. EB, IF, LF, side of hand, eyebrow, under the eye. Yawning usually is an indication that you've moved energy and you've let it go. So just be aware if you do yawn, that's what it is. So I just yawn. Okay, that's middle finger, side of hand, index finger, outside of eye, armpit, and collarbone. Eyebrow, index finger, little finger, side of hand, eyebrow, under the eye, middle finger, side of hand, index finger, outside of eye, armpit, and collar. To kind of run through it 3 times. And again, just taking a deep breath and checking in. And believe it or not, I'm down to a 1. I've had a little bit of discussion with my husband saying, okay, I can't take this on. I know you're going to get angry. Something's going to go wrong. And we just have to accept that we're going to have to deal with that. And so I said that, but I don't think he emotionally got that in my heart. So I feel like with just doing what we just did, I was able to bring that down to reality and saying, it's not my job to be in charge of their emotions or behaviors or feelings. We're all going to have them and we all have to accept that. And I need to have another discussion with them to say, okay, we need to be aware we're going to have angst, but mom's not going to take this on. And you be responsible for your own behavior and opinions and doing it. Okay. So I hope, Laura, you were able to get down to a 1. Okay. Since I don't know what your issue is and whether you cleared it, I'm just feeling like we need to do one more layer, okay, for whatever your issue is. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it again. So eyebrow, index finger, little finger, side of hand, eyebrow, under the eye, middle finger, side of hand, index finger, outside the eye, armpit, and collarbone. Eyebrow, little finger, index finger, little finger, side of hand, eyebrow, under the eye, middle finger, side of hand, index finger, outside the eye, armpit, and collarbone. Okay, so take a deep breath. And hope you were able to kind of get it more down into the realm of, 1, 1.5, 2, or 0, somewhere in there. So, but that's a technique to help deal with traumas. Okay. So just want you to check in with yourself and kind of say, okay, how did I feel? What happened? Did I notice that I had that kind of rolling different emotions that came up with different aspects of what I was dealing with? And just being aware. And a lot of times what I talk about is emotions are kind of like a bell curve. They start coming and then they rise and they get really strong. And then if you just let them go, then they will decrease and go away. And so that's what happens with our emotions. And we just need to be strong enough to know that's what happened. And that's what happens. And that it's okay to write it, and they're not going to overwhelm us, and that we need to always be in a safe place or know how to find a safe place, whether that's tapping, prayer, in order to be able to write that out. Okay. All right. So let me stop sharing now. Okay. Great. Okay. So that's an example of negative energy or trauma that's getting stuck in your body or your energy field. Okay. And you can see how it impacted me just by going through and doing things. And so that's what happens to our body. And you may not have been aware that that's what happens when your body is dealing with things. So we have this same way of, we have a way of being able to, work with people to help them deal with this. So this is one way, and it also has many. There's also several different ways in case it's something that gets really stuck. And so a lot of times I work with people to find out what is that root cause, because sometimes you kind of have to name it to claim it. That's the best way to put that. And so to discover that root cause, I work with people for 60 minutes doing a one-on-one session to help them discover what that root cause is and to clear it out so that you don't have it keep hanging over you. Okay. And so when it's a new time client, what I do is I work with them. We give $100 discount. And so if we're doing one-on-one sessions, it's $300 for doing that. So I wanted to talk about another way, and I know I was going to put up the link so that you could chat. There we go. I'm going to put up the link. Of course, I got out of the thing that I needed to do for the link. Like I said, there's a lot of technical stuff that happens here. All right, so let's go back to this. So anyway, working one-on-one, there's forms that you have to fill out in order to be able to sign up for that. And so I'm going to put the link so that you have the link to set up for a one-on-one session through our website. Here we go. Put that in the chat. And if you're watching this, we certainly can, I'll put it in the Facebook chat also after the recording. All right. So there are other examples that we can do to help the body clear the sensations in the body of the stressful situation. So sometimes people feel a lightness or a tingling or pain in their body or some kind of like almost like where they can't have a hard time breathing or something like that. And so we have a way of doing a QT release that will help clear those kind of symptoms where we're having the actual symptom or a sensation of that kind of trauma in the body. So in other words, we kind of talked about how you are putting it on a scale from 1 to 10, but sometimes people have like, I just have a tightness in my head or tightness in my chest, or my shoulder really hurts, or, right here hurts because I'm doing this all the time. And maybe it's started to let go, but they're still trying to hold on. So those are all examples of how that feeling of that stress gets stuck in the body. And we have another way to clear that. And we do that through the QT release technique, which is quantum techniques, which is the modality I work on. Okay, so when you get that stuck in the body, there are certain areas of the body that we want to put online. So an example, so a lot of times, okay, I won't go to the detail because it's a little complicated. So what we do is if someone has that, and I would love you to raise your hand if you have that, but let's say that you have, like I felt it right here in my chest, okay? It was just kind of almost like a tightening of my chest, okay? Now I don't have that at the moment, but I have about a 1, okay? So I'm just gonna kind of do that on me. So I'm thinking about where that tightness came, and I'm just gonna make sure it's not reverse. We just tap on the side of hand, under the nose, side of hand. And then we take our hand and we run it all the way down the head and back, all the way to the back of the tailbone. And that's putting the body back in parasympathetic recovery after it's been in fight or flight, okay? And then we have a series of brain engines that we put back online. I'm just kind of touching them and then tapping above the ears. And then we just make sure that all aspects of what we just dealt with is cleared, lock and key with all non-physically attached fields. So a lot of times we have beliefs and emotions and traumas and spiritual attachments that want to keep that in place. And so we're just saying, hey, we're releasing that and letting it go. And then again, we're running that same treatment again that we just did with the trauma sequence, but instead of tapping it, once we've set it, our body knows those points. And so we can just say, okay, I want to release that trauma code. And so I think about running my finger down those points, if I have them written on a piece of paper, and just saying, okay, I'm going to release that. I no longer have to hold that in. And so that's a way of getting almost like the tightness that's in the body out so that it's no longer holding on to that. Okay. Another way that sometimes, and this kind of shows up sometimes with headaches. I mentioned like right back here, I have a little angst. Now it's kind of gone at the moment, which is kind of interesting that just in doing this, it's kind of released. And so where I was feeling it is if I lean my head down to this direction, it's an occiput area. And I don't get that it's there. It's a little tight, but not bad. So if I were to put my hand right there where it hurts, and I think about, okay, is there something that I'm holding in this spot? Okay, and you can do that if you have a headache in different areas. But think about holding it. If I say, is there an emotion? No. Is there a frozen emotion? Yes. Okay. And I didn't pull up my list, but I have that up there. I have a list of emotions that sometimes we use to help get stuck. Okay, so that emotion right there. Okay, it's grief, and I know where it's coming from. My mom introduced me to travel, and I'm wanting to share that joy of traveling with my son. And so I always find that when I hold things here, I'm bracing myself against it not happening or not working out the way I planned. And so sure enough, that's grief. There's also another aspect of it in the fact that my mom can't participate in me This is really what it is. Can participate in the joy of introducing travel to my son, which I know she would love. And so I'm having to carry that burden of introducing joy, this travel to him, and I'm not sure I can get it across to him. In other words, I have a love of history. I have a love of churches and the organ and mountains and all that joys that come, and all the creative part of travel is what she taught me. And I'm wanting to pass the torch to him and help him experience that. And that's a big burden to try to get that across to him. And so that's what I'm carrying right there. I didn't know this was going to come up. I knew this was very emotional, and that's why I wanted to do that, because I knew it would. In other words, I know other people are feeling just as strong stuff as I have, but it may be a different subject, obviously, but this is something that I was carrying, and I knew that this would be helpful. So I hope this is helpful for you, Lord. Okay. All right, so that's what I'm holding it there. And it's one of those things that just naming it is letting it go. Okay. And I can, again, release it. I like to do release it this way because it's so much easier. And I think about the trauma code being right here on my shoulder, and I just release it. That's just how I do it. All right. Now there's another aspect coming up, and it's in a little different area. I can feel it right there. Okay, so is this another emotion? Is this a frozen emotion? Now, frozen emotion, I didn't really mention what that is, but frozen emotion is where I'm actually holding on an emotion for somebody else. Okay, so is this my mom's emotion? No, my dad's. Okay, so this is my dad's emotion. And my mom's a little sick at the moment. And I think back in my mind, back here, I'm holding on to the fact that what happens if something happens to her while I'm gone on my trip. Now I've tried to make peace with the fact that she would not want anything more than to have me over there introducing my family to travel. I mean, it would just make her heart sing and be very happy. And so I've made peace with that, but my dad is scared that something's going to happen while I'm gone. And I know that's what I'm carrying right, that frozen emotion of that fear. Okay. Let's go ahead and release that. And like I said, I could just do the tapping, and do all those points too, but I'm just running my finger over the trauma code, or I could do it this way if I think about it being on my hand, whatever, piece of paper. And I'm just clearing that. Now, I do this a lot, and so I do it quickly. So in other words, just doing it twice, I've already released it. Okay, so I'm letting that go. Okay. That, and then that goes there. Okay. So that's an example of how we sometimes, when we have a pain in our body, we're holding on to something. I just worked with somebody earlier today that had some hip pain or some back pain, and sure enough, she was holding on to some emotions in that area. And so we just touched that area and say, okay, what are you holding on to here? We're able to dissipate it and let it clear. All right, so I showed you two different kind of ways that if we need to do more than just the trauma sequence to help release emotions and traumas and stress and anxiety. So how do we use this technique to find the root cause of health issues? Now that we've kind of showed you how we do with the emotional part and all these other things, how do we do it with other things? Well, we use the same technique to help clear virus frequencies, bacteria frequencies, toxins like food or mold or inhalants that are in our body or in our energy field. In other words, they could be stuck. One of the things that why this came up is I ate some moldy lettuce yesterday, and so it was kind of irritating that area. And so I've already worked on releasing it, but it had an emotional issue with it too. So we can help your body reconnect with a divine intelligence for healing that your body already has. And we believe that God created our bodies to heal itself. But sometimes we have so many toxins in our life and in our environment and things like that, that our cells have a hard time being in a healthy state. And so when we clear those toxins, like whether it's mold that we eat, or it's maybe in bread, we have glyphosate that is impacting our brain and a blood-brain barrier and causing us to have kind of just foggy brain and not being able to function well. So we were able to clear those kind of foods, those pathogens that kind of make that whole area really irritated. So that's an example of how we do it to find that root cause. So I'd like to open it up to questions. So Laura, if you have any questions, you're welcome to go unmuted or type it in the chat, and I can help answer any questions you might have. So if you're thinking about what you want to ask, so we discover what that root cause is, and I do a 60-minute one-on-one session, and for first-time clients to Quantum Techniques, we offer a $100 discount, and so it's $300 for the hour. Now, a lot of times people say, well, is it always, if you're getting a $100 discount, then is it $400 for every time we work together? And the answer is no, because after that first time, we get an initial baseline. And from there, what we're doing is making sure that you don't encounter any other toxins, or that you're eating any other toxins. Or if you do, we just clear it really quickly. And so most treatments after the first initial treatment is about, I'd say 8 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 12 minutes. I have a lot of treatments that are like 25 minutes because we're addressing both physical, non-physical, making sure your body's on track, clearing off any traumas that may have come up in your life. And so it is a really simple way to clear out and get you back on track. I just worked with someone today that had been on a trip. And so a lot of times people call me after trips and want to say, okay, what did I encounter on a trip? Let's clear it out so I can, when I get back home, I'm ready to start. And I feel just as refreshed and not, low on energy and things like that since I got back. So that kind of example explains that basically not every treatment is an hour. It's usually somewhere between 8, 12, and 25, 30 minutes, sometimes 35. And it just depends on what you're working on. If it's something really emotional, then yeah, we may have to dial deep and get some things released. So I always like to give you some tools that you can use in order to be able to help you get better. And so if you would like to have a breakdown or you may have taken a picture of those trauma release points, but I can also send you the trauma sequence points to touch. So I can send that to you. So you're welcome to write in the chat the trauma sequence, and I can send that to you. We also have some basic Quantum Technique codes that deal with if you've encountered a virus, what points to touch. If you've encountered a bacteria, what points to touch, or maybe an ingestant or an inhalant, or something you put on your body, a contactant or an injectant. So I can send you those, what they call universal codes for all of those things. And so you just need to write the trauma sequence or QT codes, but I do need your email so I can send those to you. So you can type that in chat. The other thing that I was going to bring up, and I can show you here, is that there are some patches that help us be able to handle life a little bit better. And so sometimes when you're going through a difficult time, I sell the LifeWave patches. And so I have a patch on right here, and that it helps you be able to just be able to take a deeper breath, to be able to handle things a little bit more. It kind of keeps you more even. I kind of say it makes me a cool cucumber and life's ups and downs, but all that can help you. But the LifeWave patches have been really helpful in being able to do that. And it works with your neurotransmitters to keep them more in balance. And so that's something that you can physically wear in between. And so a lot of times, sometimes, you're packing for a trip, let's say, and you're trying to get everything done and this and that and everything. And you don't have time to just tap on everything if you've got issues coming up. Well, this is going to help kind of bridge the gap between the times you can kind of stop and say, okay, what's really bothering me? and to take care of that. So that's something that would be very helpful. So I can help you get started on the LifeWave patches. And so if that's something you want, you can put that in the chat. And so I can send you the link or send you some information on what kind of patches are available and which ones would help you for the situation that you're dealing with. So again, what I do is I help women in their 40s to 60s to pinpoint the root cause of their anxiety and digestion and sleep issues. So you can finally start feeling like yourself again. So my unique 7-step process helps get to the root cause of the issue. And I use Christian principles that are designed to help you regain your energy, your vitality, and to have a clear mind. No more brain fog. So that you can start feeling like something, whatever it is that's been holding you back, you can let go of, and so you can get your life back on track. So again, we mentioned that we have that link there to help you sign up to get a 60-minute one-on-one session. If you're a new QT client, then it's $300 for 1 hour. It really helps get a good baseline of where you're at, what you've been dealing with. It clears out all the pathogens and toxins that you've been dealing with, and kind of helps you be able to, like I always say, get clarity, have energy, and live in peace, because you can get those things off the table, know what you're dealing with, where you should go, what direction you should go in, all those kind of things. So I'd love to stay connected with you. And so I have my Facebook group, which is Health Puzzle Academy. And so you can join that as part of our group to learn more about health tips and how to take care of yourself naturally. And you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Jody Colgrove at Quantum Techniques. And so I offer a lot of videos on there on both connecting to your divine intelligence, for your God, for healing, and then also different things that we have encountered that where this modality can help you with. And it deals with everything from mold and brain fog and digestion issues, like I said, sleep issues, all those kind of things that I talk about in there. That's how you can stay connected. So it's time for you to discover your root cause of your health problem, so you can finally get clarity, have energy, and so you can live in peace, like we talked about. That's really important. So I'd love to connect with you. What I didn't do is enter my email address. You can send me if you want to get the QT codes. So let me write that in the chat. There you go. So that's how you can email me, and you can ask for the QT codes or for the trauma codes. Or, oh yeah, and then the LifeWave, oops, the LifeWave patches. So those are all things you can ask for and send me an email on what you're wanting information for. So I hope to connect with you and help you kind of navigate those traumas in your life. And I hope this has been very helpful for you. And I knew I'd cry because this was dear to my heart. And it was one of those things where I knew I needed to deal with it. And sometimes having a situation where you realize that trauma impacts us all in different ways, and they can be different things. And so, I used the car accident that really did happen to me. And I used this technique. I broke my leg. That really did help with me, and help this technique to help me get through that situation. And so it's just one of those things that it's a great tool to have in order to help you get your life back on track and to clear out those traumas. So I hope this has been helpful for you. And I hope that you have a blessed end of the school year, a good start to the summer. And I look forward to being on my Zoom next month. Not sure exactly what it'll be yet. Might be another one of the trauma clearing after I get back from my travels. But I'll let you know. And many blessings, and hope you have a great rest of the week. All right, blessings. Thanks for being here today.